I'm hoping the Big Ten has to modify their system for us.
Probably like getting grade 10 sandpaper rubbed on your face every day.
I mean, we say it all the time, whether, there's two types of turds. You're a sinker or you're a floater, but you're still a turd, right? I
mean, we are about players and players playing the plays and not necessarily the plays.
Welcome to the Varsity Club podcast. My name is Derek Peterson. Joining me this week, I have two of my favorite people from the Go Big Redcast. Mac, hello, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having us back. It's been a minute, but it'll be fun to catch up a little bit here.
It has been a while, and I also have Honke joining us. Honke, how are you?
Doing great. How are you doing?
Good. You guys, your podcast came over to Hurrdat Media. Have I had you on mine since that kind of transition happened?
No, the last time Dave and I were on it with you was right before last season. And actually, I have to thank you. I have to credit you because I don't think if we weren't on Varsity Club podcast, I don't think we would be on Hurrdat. I think that kind of gave us some of the legitimacy and at least got us seen by you guys. So I do appreciate that. It's been great to be part of Hurrdat.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, it's super awesome to have you guys kind of under this umbrella. This podcast is a proud part of the Hurrdat Media Network, as is the Go Big Redcast. So I said this before, but now I will say it like doubly. Go subscribe to the Go Big Redcast, leave them a rating, leave them a review, listen to these guys every week. We got some stuff that we can talk about. This was kind of a newsy week. Bill Moose was on Sports Nightly on Wednesday and basically revealed that we're going to have maybe 45,000, upwards of 60,000 fans in Memorial Stadium for the spring game on May 1, which is huge. It's huge news. That will potentially be, I think, the biggest American sporting event in terms of crowd size since COVID shut everything down. Potentially, I saw like South Carolina is going to have like 6 or 9,000 some fans in their stands, and I was like, Nebraska wants to push it to 66. That would be about 75% capacity, depending on how things go over the next month and a half. It could potentially be a really, really cool experience on May 1st, assuming we keep trending in kind of the positive direction that we're trending in. But it was funny because, so he's on Sports Nightly. We're going to have fans back. We're going to have fans back for baseball immediately this weekend. We're going to have fans back for volleyball. Here are some of the attendance caps and things like that. Here's where you can purchase spring game tickets. And then they open the phone lines, and the first caller that Bill Moose gets asks him about the Oklahoma thing and says, why did this happen? Why was this game even touched or potentially touched? And why did it take you guys so long to respond? So this report from Brett McMurphy came out like 3 weeks ago now, I think. And I haven't talked about it on my podcast. I had a column about it the day after. But after that, I haven't really said anything about it. But I have you guys on. I just want to ask from a fan perspective, from your guys' perspective, were you hit by the Brett McMurphy report? Like, what was like your immediate reaction? Was it like anger, or was it just kind of like shaking your head a little bit?
For me, first it was, oh, this is a bunch of crap. We're not doing this. I wonder how this got broke. It's just another pile on Nebraska story. And then as soon as it became kind of validated, it was immediately like a gut punch. And it was a hard, I'm a rose-colored glasses guy, and I kept trying to find ways to frame this in my mind. And every time I just run into a roadblock that would irritate me even more. It's Oklahoma, the anniversary of the game of the century. It makes us look like we're ducking somebody, and that is a hard pill to swallow. When as a fan base, that's one of the things you do is you carry your head high and you say, "We'll play anybody, anywhere." That's how you feel, and It's like that. I was having a real hard time reconciling that on that day.
Yeah, I think confusion for me. It came completely out of left field. There was, and I hear some people talk about how, oh yeah, well, we knew this was going on for BS. No. If anyone knew about it, nobody was writing about it. Nobody was talking about it publicly. So, I mean, there's a reason why if you feel like you got hit out of left field, it's because, you did. Go back to Brett McMurphy's tweet. One of the first responses is Damon Benning with pardon, question mark. I don't think he knew anything about it. And I consider him to be one of the many people in our press that are in the know. So, at the end of the day, the most important thing to me was during that 5 to 6 hour stretch of just not getting any response was that, is this game still going to happen? That was my biggest concern, was somehow a response was going to come back that it had been canceled. And once that didn't happen, once it was like, okay, we're going to go back to playing them, then I'm pretty quick to move on and just it's time to play. You know, I mean, it's a weird March gut punch, but
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the same team that we were scheduled to play is who we're going to play.
You know, on a personal note too, I had that Friday off. I was planning on sitting down and me and my wife were starting Dexter over again, and it ruined like 3 episodes for me. And I was just miserable. I couldn't get happy.
Well, and Derek, there is one thing that, you know, I can understand the goal from a couple of different perspectives of what we might be trying to do around that time. It makes sense financially to say, hey, we want to get an 8th home game. I can understand that. In fact, on our Redcast this week, we talked about petitioning the NCAA for a 1-year, retrieval of letting us have week 0 games, like across the country, not just Nebraska, everyone, because we're not alone here. I think a lot of Power 5 teams would like to have an 8th home game.
Yep.
A lot of G5 and FCS teams would like to have another money game on the road. So it'd be a one-time deal. It can't be Nebraska asking. It's more like
heavens, no.
It's more like petitioning. Could we do a 13th game? Okay, but the idea of an 8th home game makes total sense. The idea of Frost wanting to maybe move a game like that Southeastern Louisiana game up makes a lot of sense too, where you want to get an early game, not just for an early winnable game, but also we have a very unique schedule this year. Most years we don't play 3 of our first 4 on the road. Most years we're not playing week 0. It made sense to not play a week 1 game when we were going to be flying back from Dublin. That doesn't happen. So all of a sudden now we have this opening, and it's like, what can we do to get at least 2 opportunities to get into Memorial Stadium before October? All those things make sense. The one thing that doesn't make sense, will never make sense, should never be discussed, is anything revolving around, canceling that Oklahoma game. It just doesn't make sense.
Comes back to, all roads lead back to it's a non-negotiable game. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work that way.
And until we know any more information, look, like I said, I'm pretty forgiving about stuff. I'm ready to move on, only in the sense that we're still going to be playing them, and I'm not going to get any more worked up on anything else right now because I don't know anything more. I don't know any more about, this guy said this or this guy did this. I know who we're playing now.
Right.
Their rationale, sort of immediately after the fact and in the days after the fact, if you remove the name of the opponent from the schedule, the rationale makes sense. The excuses, that has a negative connotation. The excuses, they make sense. You can rationalize them. Wanting to get in an earlier home game makes sense. They play 1 home game before October. And from a recruiting standpoint, they're concerned about that. That's why they're trying to move the Southeastern Louisiana game from November to that September 4th weekend, because from a recruiting standpoint, they want that game. That makes sense. From a financial standpoint, it makes sense. They wanted to add an 8th home game because they want that extra revenue. They want to help local businesses. That makes sense. It's all admirable. Mm-hmm. But to your guys' point, really, when it's the fact that you cannot just remove the name from the opponent that you're playing that weekend. It's Oklahoma. And Bill Moose kind of said this too. In his Sports Nightly appearance, he's like, if it hadn't been Oklahoma, if it had been like Wake Forest, I think was one of the schools that he named, like no one would have cared, which is true. But it is Oklahoma. You can't remove the name. It is a game that you scheduled yourselves to commemorate a game 50 years ago that you won. So all of the things around it were just interesting. And I don't want to beat a dead horse. It's been 3 weeks now. And like you said, there's still some uncertainty around sort of what exactly happened, who was the first person that was like, hey, let's think about this. But I just, one of the things that sort of was the contrarian viewpoint when all of this was going down was, is this really that big of a deal? Is this overblown? So now that we're 3 weeks removed from it, it seems like for one of you, maybe Mac, it seems like it's maybe still a little raw. Do you guys feel like now that we're a couple weeks removed, do you feel like that was maybe overblown, the reaction? Because Nebraska got hammered for 6 hours. Do you think the reaction was a little overblown? Kind of how do you feel now that we're a few weeks removed?
Yeah, that's difficult to say because I somewhat think that the reaction is what caused the ship to correct itself before it got too far. Part of me thinks
completely fair.
So we needed to have that outrage. And, I think about this too. And I guess the part that hurts the most is the perception of ducking somebody. But I would argue that, say Oklahoma wasn't going to be very good this year, every Nebraska fan still would be like, you're not canceling that game.
Yeah.
Just because it's a perceived loss, which I totally understand. That's not as big of a point as you can't take the Oklahoma game off after this kind of history that we have. Most of us go in there thinking we're going to lose this game. That's not really the point. It's like, that's the part where like, how can the uppers have that conversation? Like, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. I guess when I start talking about it again, yeah, that's where I land. I'm still a little hot about it.
What's interesting too is we've talked about this a number of times. Just in general, Twitter doesn't represent Husker Nation, or such a small percentage of it. And that 5 to 6 hours that I know I felt, and I know you felt, and Derek, you were experiencing it too. It's because we're on Twitter, and yet the amount of people, mostly some friends and family of mine, that came up to me like 2 days later, Monday, Sunday, they were kind of like, oh, did you hear something about Oklahoma? Are we not playing? They didn't experience the 5 to 6 hours of awful, gut wrenching. That was never part of their life.
That's worth mentioning.
It was part of our lives.
Yeah, maybe they're smarter.
Well, if you notice, I got smarter for about the next 5-6 days. I got off of Twitter. I just couldn't be on it. I didn't want to be around whatever. If more was going to come out, I just didn't want to be there for it, and I had nothing to contribute at that point, because to the point from the very beginning, I felt as blindsided as anybody. Right, so I had nothing positive to say at the time, and what's the old saying Mom and Dad would tell you? If you don't have anything positive to say, don't do it. So I just,
that's exactly
I'm sure that's what they said. So I just got off of Twitter.
It's funny because I went home the day all that stuff happened. I was on my way home, and we were in Oklahoma for a handful of days, and I had people texting me that I hadn't talked to in a while, being like, "Hey man, what the hell happened here?" And I was like, I know you don't follow Pat 40, so I know you weren't like enraged by the Twitter machine, and you were still like, what? So it was an interesting time period. Mitch Sherman did a piece looking at like the 20 strangest things that Nebraska football has endured, or like the strangest events of, I don't remember what the time frame was, but like when he does one again 20 years from now, that's probably going to be like in the top 5. It's going to be insane.
Yeah. We were calling it Black Friday, I think, on our text chain. Sure. I will just
incredible.
I'm ecstatic that the game is happening. That is the one game on that schedule I've had, circled for years and years. So I mean, at least from this one Husker fan, and I know Mac, you feel the same thing, and the rest of the Redcast. I mean, we are ecstatic to be playing
The
Oklahoma.
only thing I don't look forward to about that game is, the week before the media build up back to hear this crap again.
Yeah.
That's the part.
Who are we talking to 2 nights before all this broke?
Oh yeah, we're talking Pick Six.
Brett Ciancia, Pick Six previews, a Heisman voter. He's on the FWAA All-American Selection Committee, and we're talking with him 2 nights before about being a blue blood and what that means.
It was so
and we even talked about the Oklahoma game and how big a game that is and what a big deal it is. And he has 130,000 votes every year on Twitter talking about who's a blue blood. This team. And Nebraska, for yet another year in a row, Nebraska is one of the 8 teams in his poll that is voted a blue blood. And you're a blue blood because of games like this.
Right.
Win or lose, you want to play games like this. And so I'll just leave it with, I'm so ecstatic that it is going to happen. The worst feeling I had for those 5 or 6 hours was even the thought that potentially it was going to be dropped. When they came back, when they made the right call, I'm ready to move on. Let's play them and let's beat them, right? Let's do it.
Right.
Let's do it.
Bill Moose on Wednesday night reaffirmed their commitment to that game, so they're looking forward to playing it September 18th. The players in Nebraska's locker room are excited for that game. The players in Oklahoma's locker room are excited for that game. I will get to go home for that game and see some places that I haven't gotten to see in a while. So I'm excited for that game. I know somebody like Mike Babcock is excited for that game. And then obviously all of Husker Nation is excited. So it's still on the schedule. We can move on to happier topics because, like I said in the beginning, fans are coming back to the stands.
Yes.
So this was always going to happen, right? This was always the end goal. It wasn't you're going to take fans out of the stands and they're just never going to come back. There was always going to be a point where people are going to come back. There's always going to be a point where we reach 100% capacity, and there's still going to be people probably when that happens that are a little annoyed with it or questioning why we're doing it when we're doing it. But Nebraska had really hoped that the Big Ten was going to allow local decision makers to set attendance caps for spring games. And Bill Moose and Ronnie Green were huge champions of basically local authority on this, dating back to last season. They got a win with this. The Big Ten announced that moving forward for spring sports and then for spring games in football, that it's going to be local authority, local decision makers setting attendance limits. So Nebraska is planning right now for 50% capacity for the spring game. Depending on how the next few months go, that could, well, I guess the next month and a half, really, whatever it is, could rise to 75%, which would be about 66,000 fans. What are your guys' thoughts on what that day is going to look like if, we get there and yes, there are 45 to 66,000 fans? What do you guys think that day is going to look like? What are you personally excited most for about that day?
That's going to be an interest. I think probably, as excited as I am to say, it's going to be amazing and wonderful. I think it'll be a little awkward at first, no matter what. As exciting as everybody will be, we're still very conditioned to mask culture, and how are you going to drink a bunch of beers with a mask on? It's going to be difficult. So there's going to be a learning curve, but hopefully that energy that returns downtown and in the rail yard and stuff, the stuff you walk around and you just feel like that. If we can get some of that back, and really just kind of charge up the city a little bit, I think I'm tickled about it. I'm gonna do what I can to get tickets for sure.
I'll tell you.
Do you think that energy will be there? They're gonna sell tickets. They're gonna go every other row, so it's gonna look different. Do you still think that same energy is gonna be there?
I guess I'm hoping for a big turnout, and I'm talking more almost like a tailgate energy, really.
Yeah.
Then because the game effect will be different, but spring games can be sparse a little bit. I don't know. That's interesting.
I think it will be, the energy will be there. I also think it's going to be emotional. I mean, like, to go back and do something that has been taken away for a while. I mean, this is a dumb side story, but like, I take my son swimming 2-3 times a week, and we would go to the Y, and we would always, up until COVID, we would go to a little changing room, like a family changing room, and then they closed it for a year. And it reopened like 2 weeks ago. And we went in there for the first time to do, change right beforehand. And I almost started tearing up. I'm like, what am I tearing up about? It's a changing room, but it was like, I haven't been in this place for a year. And I'm like, if I'm tearing up at a changing room, what is it going to be like when
you for sure will cry?
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
Honke cries at a lot.
When Sirius is playing and all that. Yeah. When that stuff happens, I mean, it's the first chance to get back to some normalcy. And I can't wait for it. The Big Ten, we gave them a lot of garbage last year when I think they made some poor decisions at times. Applaud them in this case.
Yeah, that
they
was
made
nice to see. If nothing else, that was good to see.
We talked about it this week on the Redcast, which was you can't compare what's going on in Lincoln, Nebraska with Piscataway. I don't know what Rutgers and New Jersey's numbers are right now, but I know here, for the most part, I think the whole state is either in the green. Lancaster County was the last county. I don't know if we're in the green yet or it's going to be, but everything's trending right. I think 75% of people that are 65 and older in the state have had the vaccine now. Yeah. And this is wait another 5 weeks until we're playing. I mean, look, we're on the right path. This is, if you do the right things, the reward is we should be starting to get back to these, attendance games, and we're outdoors. And I'm sure, is there a mask mandate with it? I'm sure probably wearing a mask. So, again, we can do things the right way, but man, I want to get into that stadium. I want to be there an hour early. That's me personally.
If I remember correctly, the governor's stated goal was to have the entire state vaccinated, or everybody that's eligible to get one have one by May. That would certainly change the landscape of what we're talking about. If Nebraska opened Memorial Stadium up to 100% capacity, would you guys go?
Yeah, for sure.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be there heartbeat.
Full disclosure, I've been vaccinated, but I probably.
Yeah, I'm mid-vaccine right now. I've still got one more to come. Actually, my first vaccine came on the Friday, 2 weeks ago. The Friday of everything happening with OU. It was
good news, bad news situation for you.
Honke's high risk.
They were like, your blood pressure is crazy. We can't give you the vaccine.
If it's 100% capacity, but masks are still required, would you go?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, the mask stuff doesn't. Wear it if that's what it takes right now. It's the least of my concerns. Wear a Husker mask, brand it up.
Yeah. I've been beaten down enough. Mask is fine. It's totally fine. There's I would never consider before. Yeah, play ball.
What was the last year like for you guys? Just not being able to go to an event. We got in my inbox this afternoon from Nebraska's sort of communications director, the university spokesman, that we're going to get in-person availability.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. That's
yeah.
exciting.
And yeah, that was my reaction. I was like, "Oh, this is really," because we weren't expecting it, right? Which is totally fine. It would have been completely fine if they stuck with Zoom. It's a little bit easier to moderate stuff with Zoom, and so I was I was on the fence. I was like, maybe we'll get in-person availability, but if they don't, it's fine. You can put that off a little bit longer. But we're going to get in-person availability for the first time. I haven't done in-person stuff with the football team since the end of the 2019 season because I was not with the spring stuff. In 2020, I was getting married. And we're going to get potentially maybe 1 or 2 open portions to begin practices where we can watch from the second floor kind of balcony area inside Hawks. Go ahead.
Do you think that's kind of a concession for some maybe mishandling of recent events? Do you think that's sort of we really need to extend a little olive branch here because traditionally I feel like since Frost has been here, certainly compared to Riley, your guys' access has been, very strongly moderated by him. And this is almost from what it was to what they're going to. To me, this is a big jump forward to the access I thought you would have got. Yeah.
Maybe that'd be cool. If it was like an olive branch kind of thing, that'd be cool. I wouldn't put it past them. Like we've said all along that sort of the way that Frost has approached media has been guided by the way he was treated when he was a player here, which is fine. That's his, his own past sort of shaping how he views things now, which is fine. Everybody does that. So, I mean, I thought it was really cool. I'm really excited for it.
I would love it.
He has really been sort of wanting to control more of the narrative than maybe, some other coaches out there. Some people will be critical of it. Like today, Lon Kruger retired. We're recording this on a Thursday. Lon Kruger retired from Oklahoma today. And I had a tweet about how he let me sit and watch every single practice. He let me come to every single practice. And as that was my first job as a sports reporter, was the Oklahoma men's basketball beat when I was in school. And just to sort of have that, it was really helpful just to sort of have that kind of coach that was that open, that willing to talk to you and being like, I have nothing to hide. I will see you outside and we'll say hi and we'll chat about stuff. That was really helpful. But at the same time, somebody like Jim Harbaugh that wants to control things, that's just the way that it is. So I'm not going to complain too much one way or the other. I told one of their SIDs last season, I was like, you guys don't have to give us access at all. And you do. So we'll take anything.
Well, and there is something to be said too about the fishbowl of Nebraska and the expectation on our coaches and our, especially in football, that there's more asked out of them, I think, than so many other programs where, I've heard coaches that have come through here and they're like, my gosh, we have a Tuesday and a Wednesday and a Thursday press conference all, during the week. And it's like, you go to some other school and it could be another P5, blue blood school. And they're like, geez, there isn't the same amount. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. Look, we create a podcast just to add to the glut of, people talking about this. We certainly aren't
the only fan podcast.
Yeah, we're not helping things, right? But I mean, the fan base, that's how passionate it is here. And it's the greatest thing in the world. It can be the worst thing in the world all at the same time. I'm sure Frost loves the fan base and all the support that it provides. And it also, it takes a lot out.
It does.
It's just it never ends, right?
I do tend to believe though that if you're a little bit more open and if you're a little if you peel the curtain back a little bit more, then there won't be sort of that desire for a rumor mill, and you won't have such a fervent message board rumor mill that just churns and churns and churns crazy stuff.
I think that's exactly the point, because like you said, it's about controlling the narrative, and what we all know is no one can. The narrative goes off on its own, and you get into rumor mills, and you get into chat boards, and you get into social media, which weren't there 25 years ago when he was a player too. I mean, that's a thing that's changed. And narrative, I don't know who controls the narrative.
So many
anymore.
Opinions and speculations there to be accounted for that it's like it's innumerable. So they could open it up a little bit and let the people actually watching stuff report what they're seeing. I mean,
I'm
not
not
reinventing the wheel anyway.
I would love them to open up, if possible, during spring ball. I saw Georgia Tech announcing that they're opening up some practices for fans to be able to sit in on. I would just even have one would be amazing.
$5 on a Friday night. Who wouldn't do that?
You know, we've been we went to all the coaches clinics, you know, during the spring. We've been going back to all the way to Solich years. And Mac last year was the first year because of COVID. We didn't make it. And I'm not expecting them to have one this year. But yeah, you get to see a practice and everything. That was part of it. And it was great. And it's, you know, I would love to have the general fan base have a chance to just see one practice. But I don't know what logistically and everything would go into them trying to set that up.
I don't know.
Don't show me your scout team. Don't show me sort of the nuts and bolts stuff that you're working on for each individual opponent, but show me some of your base stuff that you're running when you're doing team on team action. Show me some of your base stuff and we'll have a better understanding of what you're trying to do. And then our reporting will be a little bit better. And I think too, if you open it up a little bit more and do that, then, you know, when you reach a situation like they were in last year where Frost is saying it looked really good in practice, these guys were neck and neck in practice. If we're seeing that, or if let's say they open it up to fans, you guys are seeing that, you're not going to jump down his throat whenever he says stuff like that. Because I think those comments sort of just fall on deaf ears now based on everything that's happened. But that's just my 2 cents. The question that I wanted to ask you guys. So like, we got that news. I got really excited because it was a nice break from everything that has happened. It was sort of my like changing room moment, Honke, that you mentioned, the story that you shared, which is a great story. That's a great story. I don't say that to make fun. That's a great story. Everybody has had those moments where it's like, man, we're getting back to some kind of normalcy. This is awesome. What was it like for you guys this last season, just watching in a different kind of way than maybe you had before?
You know, it was such a roller coaster going into it. You know, a game's not happening, or the schedule being changed or taken away again. It's like I got to the point, sort of like what I said with the mask. I would take anything. So you know, the experience was strange. Not having the crowd there at first was strange, but you know, once you got down to, you know, it's funny. We are all so forgiving at the beginning of the season. We don't care if we win any games. We just want to see plays. You know, we just want to get out there, and that just goes away so quickly. And that's kind of how I was with football. It's like, you know, no fans, whatever. We need to stop snapping so horribly, you know, and we need to play some special teams. And then, you know, for just personally, you know, I work a lot of, I do a lot of standbys for a lot of football games and, you know, high school football games and basketball games and some of the university stuff. So I've been lucky, and then I still got to go to a lot of sporting events, and with nobody in the crowd, nobody's getting hurt.
Yeah, you were on basketball games, like near, you know, right
courtside. Yeah,
you get to hear everything. Yeah, for me, just the season, just the strangeness of it, the Wisconsin week of just, you know, a couple days beforehand, all of a sudden the team, you're just not going to play them, right? That probably hit me in similar ways actually as the Oklahoma talk earlier, where for different reasons, but just we're not going to play. What, this team that's on it was just crazy, right? Well, then give us Chattanooga. What, we can't play them? What, now we're going to get beat up for, you know, somebody with a blue check mark nationally is going to beat us up because we want to play Chattanooga. I mean, it was just like, if as a Husker fan, sometimes it felt like a punching bag where you're just taking it from every direction. And again, my earlier advice of stay off of Twitter, I probably need to take that more often. You know, we have a PSA that we created.
It's a masochistic relationship.
We created,
you know, it's like, I know it's going to hurt. What am I doing?
We created a PSA. You can find it. It's called SOOT, SOOT, stay off of Twitter. And it's, you know, if you think like you're going to start tweeting at players about stuff, stay off of Twitter. Well,
please.
Same thing. Like when there's just bad news, like I need to just keep reminding myself, get off of it. It's not probably for the best.
If you want to tweet at players, just redirect the tweet to the players' parents.
Yeah, there you go. And
Kurt Warner takes that well. Yeah.
That's my talking point that has become a thing. And there's one very specific person that I'm thinking of that if he listens to this podcast, he'll get a laugh out of that. So I'm making jokes. I'm making jokes for a very, very niche audience right now. But
that's a good advice, though. I mean,
it's the realm of podcasting. Please don't tweet at recruits' parents. Please don't do that. I say that facetiously. Don't do it, please. Or if you do, at least tag me in it so that I can get in trouble for it and not you.
Don't tweet their players. Don't tweet their players. Don't tweet. Come on, people.
You treat their fan base like a man.
I will give you guys tickets to volleyball, baseball, softball, soccer. Which are you going to first?
Volleyball. Oh, man. Yeah, volleyball, but baseball. So.
I guess probably volleyball, but baseball's a real close second. Close second.
Will
Especially
Bolt
on a. Oh, go ahead. Yeah,
he's been exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
the start for him has been exciting.
The pitching there. I mean, how deep we went in the bullpen in the last game against Iowa, and we're getting some runs going here. I mean, it's going to be a weird year. The RPI isn't going to mean a whole heck of a lot when you haven't had a chance to play any non-conference games. And again, I credited the Big Ten a little earlier. I'm not going to credit them here for. I think they set the conference up poorly for CWS and postseason, but
it was just weird. It was weird. It's weird to not have a baseball conference tournament and then have fans at your basketball conference tournament. Yeah. It's just weird.
Yeah, and to not start until after March when the SEC and those schools are all playing in mid-February. I just, again, this is where we get into some of the inconsistencies of how the NCAA, how conference by conference, how they run things. And it, as a fan, I'm just speaking purely as a fan, it's just frustrating to watch. Yeah. But Bolt, I mean, my guy, it feels like he's probably been here like 7 years now, but he's coached 8 games.
Has any coach had a longer runway before their first game to kind of get things right? I mean, what a unique situation for him.
I love having him here. It's great to get Bolt back, and it finally feels like we're kind of getting to watch a little bit of Bolt ball now.
Yeah, it does feel like it does feel like he's been here a long time. Do you guys have any thoughts on either the men's basketball team or the women's basketball team that you want to hit on?
We talked and focused a lot more on the men's basketball side. And, I was in Denver last weekend for the first round. I always go up there and hang out with Dave. And we have some friends up there in that area. And we were talking about how the Big Ten is going to be different next year. And you have 9 teams that made it this year to the tournament. And then the 5 that didn't, 3 of those teams fired their coaches. So there's only 2 coaches, Northwestern and Hoiberg, coming back. And then out of that top 9, there's a lot of players, the Garzas and all those guys of the world that are starting to leave. And those teams, there's an opportunity for us to take not just a small step, a large step up, because we finally have 5, 6, 7 core guys back. This is the first time in the Hoiberg era we're going to have that we're not starting with 12 guys that we're all looking at a roster like, who are these players? We're actually going to know it. And then you add a couple of those recruits in there, the 5-star, and we've got, so I think we're at a good point next year. I'm always going to be the optimist on this stuff, but I think we're at a good point to, even the top half. I mean, and the other thing with the Big Ten is, I get a little tired sometimes. Oh, the Big Ten's unbelievable, or it's not. It's like any other conference. It changes from year to year. The same conference that sent 9 schools to the NCAA this year, 3 years ago, couldn't send us there as the 4th. We were the 4 seed of our own, and had 13 wins in conference, 20 plus wins. So it changes from year to year.
College basketball are pretty quick, which is kind of a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Be a very satisfying situation.
When you finish 14th, it's a good thing.
Yeah, we're going to need a big swell on the other side now and we got Jack Hoiberg now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, things are looking up. No.
There you go. And like basketball too. I mean, you only got 5 guys on the floor, so if you sign one 5-star kid that's really, really good, that's going to play a bunch for you, you can flip stuff real quickly.
Real quick, yeah, absolutely.
Did you guys make brackets, and are they shredded at this point?
Pretty rough. Illinois didn't do me any good, and Ohio State, really, the Big Ten.
Weird.
The Big Ten.
Yeah, the Big Ten, right? Yeah.
Wow, they did it again. I should have seen that coming.
We posted something that said something like, thanks Big Ten for bringing back college basketball. Signed all 8 schools that beat the Big Ten schools. Kind of the stuff we were getting on football last year from teams. I don't know. I just saw today Rutgers has a guy that's going to be transferring around. I mean, there's going to be a lot of changes here.
How was your bracket?
Well, I didn't do a bracket.
What?
No, I decided not to. But when I flew out to Denver, because they have all the sports betting and everything, Dave, and we have the Go Big Betcast as our spinoff show. Yeah. So Dave and Redcast Rob and producer Skip and Boomer were doing that. They got me to sign up for FanDuel. So I had FanDuel app, and if you put a $50 bet down on Michigan State, UCLA, you got 113 points on Michigan State. Like, they could lose by 112 and you win. It was a guaranteed victory, and you win $45. So I had $45 to play with the whole weekend. I lost it all. I mean, I lost 4 parlays. One of them I lost all 3 in that one parlay, which I hear is pretty impressive. It's hard to do.
Gotta structure that the right way.
So I'm not very good at that. But I was like, I'm not going to lose any money. And then at the very end, after several drinks, I was like, I'm just going all in on Texas, Abilene Christian, and UCLA, BYU. And I ended up, because of the UCLA game, I actually ended up with some money. And then I bet on drinks tonight. Then I bet on Boomer Saint killed a Australian football thing, and that was 2 in the morning.
When you get together, and you should not get FanDuel. That's a bad recipe. FanDuels and beers is not a great.
I've already deleted. I was up $20 for the weekend, but I'm sure this makes for a great podcast. But and then I deleted. Like such big spenders, dude. I was up $20, man. I was up $20, and then I deleted FanDuel when I got done. So, what was your original question, Derek?
Brackets. I had Oklahoma.
That's what it was.
I had Oklahoma State going to the Final Four, beating Illinois. So I had Illinois losing. So I wasn't concerned about them losing, but then Oklahoma State losing really kind of messed me over. My bracket was going fine. I had Ohio over Creighton too, and I was hoping for good things there, and then that didn't happen.
So 2 questions. Being from Oklahoma, are you rooting for Oral Roberts now? And then, do you have any good oral jokes? Because I mean, on Twitter, that's been the last week or 2.
I have a professional job that I would like to keep, so I have not made oral jokes. That's a line that I haven't crossed on Twitter. I get pretty close to the line sometimes, but that's a line that I don't think I'm able to cross. I did see one tweet though, that was it was like making a joke off of their jersey, and it was because I don't remember who they played, where they beat to get to the Sweet 16. But it was like, we're going to the Sweet 16, and then Oral Roberts was just a zoomed in picture of their jersey. Which are you?
Oh,
that's pretty good.
Nice.
That's pretty good. I'm not clever enough to do some of that stuff. So,
to me, they're good work. They do good work.
Yeah.
Let's wrap this up with this. Spring football starts on Tuesday. This upcoming Tuesday.
Okay.
What do you guys want to see from spring football?
I think, Mac and I were talking about this before we got started. And to me, this is the best roster from top to bottom, depth-wise, position-wise, that we've had under Frost, certainly in the spring. But I would just say maybe period. We are really deep. Now, some of these guys have more experience than others. You look at that running back room. There's, 6 guys there, and we're going to see how it works out. But what is unique so far under Frost is that they're here. There's no more talking about when that guy gets here in August, the Omar Manning, when he gets here in August, when Nadib Joseph gets here in August, a couple years ago, when Dedrick Mills,
Green, wasn't he one of the ones?
Jakeem Green, when Dedrick Mills gets here in August, all these guys that aren't here yet, when they get here, they're going to be All-Americans. There's none of that right now. The guys that are, I don't really want to talk about a player if he's not on campus right now, going through all the workouts. And that's the thing that excites me right now is I see a really deep team, all these positions. They got a lot of work. The receivers, my gosh, Torrey and Manning and Betts and all those guys. The players are there, but
the missing piece isn't what's coming. You know what I mean? Like all the pieces, presumably, like you're saying, are here. So it's not. You should get a pretty good, complete picture of what your team looks like this spring. I would think
so.
So that being said, those are your overarching goals. Me personally, the running back room. I'm just fascinated because with Wandell leaving, that means he can't run the ball anymore. So it's going to have to be another running back. We're going to have to see what those guys can do. I think we've got talent back there, but how the hell would I know that? Just presumably, but the way they've recruited, if any of those guys can hold up, I'm not terrified of how that room could turn out, but so it's mostly offensive side, right? I mean, the wide receivers, again, on paper, they look amazing, and you're hearing good things already. Betts' work ethic is really come along, and Samari Toure has been all business, and Omar Manning. I mean, he's making pictures, and he's still here. Part of me thought Omar Manning wouldn't even be here by now. So the fact that he's still in the team, still, tweeting things out, because we all know whatever you put on Twitter is gospel, and you never go back on that. So he's in my heart now. No, but anyway, but those are the questions. Defensively, it's a little different.
Yeah, I'm also really genuinely intrigued with our 2 analysts. And I know that's not something that I would normally be thinking of, but these aren't just 2 normal analysts to me. to, on the offensive side, have Ron Brown, who's coached, at the running back position, who's coached Roy Halou and Abdullah and Burkhead, to have him be in a supportive position of Ryan Held at that position, as we have 6 guys now fighting for that spot. That's key. To bring Bill Bush, who just has a ring on his finger from a couple of years ago at LSU, recruited Burrow there, who's coached under Urban Meyer at Utah, who's coached at Nebraska, is from Nebraska, to have him be this defensive / special teams analyst. We've already heard certain things that, he's even already playing an active role in getting some of the special teams depth charts and stuff together, that they're further ahead than that in that area than they've been in the past. Am I talking out of line to think that Dawson's going to be a coordinator of special teams? I think that I wouldn't be shocked at all to hear that announcement in the next week. I mean, I think that we would probably do that.
Everything the staff has done in a lot of ways, and I shouldn't say everything, but a lot of things the staff has done decision-wise, look, they make sense on paper.
Yeah.
Like Bill Bush, that makes sense. That should be an improvement. That should be, and Ron Brown at running back, that makes sense. That's a good move. Now, will any of this stuff manifest in wins? Well, it's kind of got to at this point. But I mean, they presumably, we're very good at winning the offseason. We've had a few trips this week, this
is the year.
It's been great.
We've lost the offseason, and that's not a bad thing.
There's still time. There's still time.
But yeah, I like a lot of the moves. A cohesive unit. That would be interesting for you guys to see. I mean, I've always felt like the practice that they put on, depending on which part you get to watch, is a very fluid kind of frenetic practice. It looks impressive a little bit, but if you could see a little pass Skelly, or if you could see some scrimmaging and just see how the guys look athletically matching up with each other, that would be really informative for you guys, and to be able to report that back, that'd be wonderful. That's what my fingers are crossed for you guys.
Sometimes we'll get some of those red zone situations where it's like, okay, the defense is starting on, let's say, the 5-yard line, keep them out of the end zone. And I think most people probably think the defense is going to be a little extra salty this year. So that'll be interesting to see. I will tell you guys right now, buy Savion Morrison stock.
Good deal. Love to hear it.
Yeah.
Savion Morrison stock.
And we like the size of him too. We've heard some people refer to him as a small back. It's like, no,
not even close.
No, he'll fit in just fine, I think, with the direction this offense is going. One other thing I think that is a very positive trend for Husker fans right now, that there's talk of Frost releasing performance index numbers from the weight room.
Yeah.
That's a great sign if that happens, because I know that's something that he's wanted to do or has talked about doing in the last couple of years. But when we talked to Sipple, even, I think he said that they just weren't ready to show those numbers, or they weren't what they were expecting.
I understand that feeling. I wouldn't want to show my numbers right now.
Well, so the point is that, if we're at that point now, and I think the numbers would probably look pretty good, and it would be a great for guys like us that are from the 90s that we're used to seeing that every single spring. You're going to see those numbers, who ran the 40s and the lifting and all the stuff.
Makes me want to buy a newspaper,
man, all over it.
Or a subscription to Hail Varsity.
Yes.
I'm just setting you up, brother.
Use Redcast at checkout too.
I need to have you guys on the podcast more often, man. Set me up for dingers like that. Gentlemen, I love your perspective. I love your input. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'll let you get back to your evening and not take up any more of your time. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, man, it's been a blast. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Seriously.
We will be back next week with another podcast. In the meantime, keep reading HailVarsity.com. Keep listening to all of the podcast offerings in the Hail Varsity Network. Listen to the podcast offerings in the Hurrdat Media Network, which includes the Go Big Redcast, where you can hear Honke and Mac. It's good stuff. It's always good stuff. So listen to it every week.
Yeah.
We'll be back next week. Thank you, guys.
A Hurrdat Media Production.